Welcome to Mamaroneck Public Radio's pre-game interviews. This episode, we had a chance to sit down with one of Mamaroneck Public Radio's very own live broadcast commentators.
Good morning, I'm David Seigerman. I am a former parent here at Mamaroneck High School, someone who's always followed all the programs here at the school, including the athletic department. And I am one of the lucky people who get to broadcast Mamaroneck hockey games on MPR.
David has had 2 kids go through Mamaroneck High School. As a parent, he has helped out with not only today's subject, hockey, but also the school's PACE program. But his story doesn't start at Mamaroneck. David discovered his love for sports journalism and broadcast all the way back in university. How did you originally decide that you were going to do sports journalism growing up? Is this something that you knew that you wanted to do when you were in high school, or was this something that you kind of leaned towards more when you were in college?
It's a great question because I think on some level I always gravitated toward sports and sports storytelling. But it wasn't until my sophomore year in college when I was taking my first news writing class. And after about 2 or 3 assignments, my professor said, you know, everything you are writing about is about sports. Did you ever think about going into sports writing? And I said, that's a thing? And I knew it because I read Sports Illustrated every week when I was a kid, and I loved that long-form storytelling. And I read every newspaper sports section, so I always followed it. It just never occurred to me to go into it as a profession and a life. And that professor said that to me that day, and at that moment, the light went on, and I kind of went down that path for a long time.
Back when Seigerman was a budding journalist, there was no TikTok, Instagram, or X to launch your opinions. Instead, he started the old-fashioned way: local magazines and newspapers, print journalism.
Pathways are so different now because there were plenty of things that I worked in that don't exist anymore. Like there aren't as many newspapers, there aren't as many magazines, there were no podcasts then, there was no internet then. So I actually took the approach that when I was in college, I did what you guys are doing here. I did everything that I possibly could. I wrote for the school paper. I did games on the radio station. I did sports. I was an anchor on a newscast doing sports for our television network. And then finally, my senior year, I got an internship during my senior year at the local paper in town, the Ithaca Journal, and I just wrote. And I just worked the muscle. They talk about the 10,000 hours, right? So I did everything that I could to learn my skills and develop my skills. And then after college, I started to do what people did then, which was write letters and send printed out resumes to newspapers around the country. And I worked at Newsday after college for a year covering high school sports and some other stuff. I moved to Tennessee and worked for 4 years covering major college football and basketball and high school sports, and it was awesome. So, I mean, to me, the only thing that is similar today as it was back then is just you have to just build your craft. You have to find every opportunity to write, to do podcasts, to do whatever you can to work your skills and find the places that will allow you to do it for them.
After many years working in the industry, Seigerman has created a diverse portfolio of work that is only expanding. He's now moving away from the exciting world of sports journalism towards creating a better tomorrow.
So it's interesting because for the last several years, I've operated independently. So I've written books. I started a podcast several years ago. I write and contribute to all different websites, sports websites and things. In the last couple of years, I've actually started to work as working communications for an environmental non-for-profit. I've decided after all of these years to try and use my powers for good, right, instead of just for fun, as sports writing often is. But there's a book project that I've been working on that I don't think is going to actually materialize, but I've been doing that. I'm going to relaunch my podcast, so I'm still doing my thing. I'm just not doing it for anyone specifically or consistently.
David has been on the Larchmont Mamaroneck sports scene for years.
Because I was working from home, I had a lot of opportunity to get involved in the schools. And my daughter, who's a junior in college now, she was very involved in musical theater. She went through the PACE program. She's very good friends with Mr. Moore and loved her experience here. And I tried to help out that program while I could. And also when she was in elementary school, she played softball and she played soccer. So I coached her and her teams then. And my son played baseball growing up, played soccer growing up, and then in fourth grade started playing travel hockey. And so I got involved. I couldn't coach him because I can't skate. I can't not skate. So I tried to help out. I was the team manager, which is the person for travel hockey who sets schedules and makes sure that everybody's showing up for practice on time and all knows where to go on road games.
Though he didn't coach, he got involved in every way possible, eventually leading to him starting up a live broadcast for people to watch our varsity hockey games.
So I did what I could to help out the program, the travel program around here. I got involved with the board of the Mamaroneck Youth Hockey Association and worked with that program for a long time. And through that got kind of connected to the school hockey program because I happen to think that we have a really interesting, and a lot of schools have a system similar like this, that the travel hockey program becomes the feeder program for the high school hockey program. So I was involved with the schools, I was involved with hockey, and it was just a natural that when my son finally made varsity that I would help out however I could, which started off doing games on my phone, streaming it on this app, the most low production value game production there has ever been. And then that led to the opportunity last year to start doing games for MPR, which has been a blast.
Yeah, how did your son feel about you constantly being at the games, like commentating, filming? Was he like okay with that, or was he more a bit hesitant to have you always like commentating on what he was doing?
He was totally fine with it. I think he liked the fact that I was doing it. I think it got a little bit dicey when you've been up in the press box at Homics when I would be talking about what happened in the game, and it turned out to be him who took the penalty and is now sitting in the penalty box, having to listen to his father talk about the penalty that he just took, and he took more than a couple over his career. But I think he had fun doing that, because he knew I'd be at the games, which I always was anyway. But I also followed the team closely, and I really paid attention to who the lines were and who was playing well and how things were going. And I think he liked being able to talk to me about his team with that level of detail. And I have to say that the all the families that I've gotten to know and all the kids that I've gotten to know through the hockey program have been great, and it's just been fun. And if it's not fun, then there's no reason to do it.
Last year, we reached out to Mr. Seigerman in hopes of expanding MPR. Since then, it's been an incredible journey.
I'm trying to think of who asked me last year, who it might have been. I don't know who the first. It might have been Mr. Madden who asked initially. Maybe it was Kara.
Maybe Kara, because she was in charge of live broadcasts.
And her brother is Mikey.
Yes.
And he's the goalie on the team, and maybe the best goalie in Westchester County. And so I can't remember how it initially happened, but someone asked if I would be interested in doing that. And then I got a chance to work with Teddy, who was doing the commentary for the games. And I'd known him since he was probably in kindergarten or first grade, because he's the same age as my son. And it was really fun. And I was really honestly blown away with the professionalism of the students who are producing these live games, which is not easy to do, right? There is all kinds of troubleshooting that has to happen, and I was just blown away. And so this year, the invitation to return came from you. And so I have you to thank for having a chance this year to get to work with Jacob and Jonah on the game calls.
So obviously you've watched the team develop a lot. How do you think they've changed in the past couple of years that you've been watching them? What has been their journey, and how do you think they've improved themselves? As
somebody who's watched sports for all these years, I'm always fascinated by that evolution, right? How does a team develop? How does a program develop? I mean, obviously it begins with Coach Schaap, right? He's a legend. I think Jacobs talked about that last game that we did. This is a coach who's done everything. He's coached everybody who's ever lived in Mamaroneck, I think, in every sport possible. So it all comes from the coaching staff. But I also think that this is a very unique team in that there's a maturity on the roster which is primarily younger players, right? Usually what happens is that a team will take on the identity of its older players who have the influence over the younger players. I think this year there are so many young players who came in who are so mature on the ice. There's so many young players who have gotten varsity experience in the past, like Aiden Coe and Dimitri and Cam Ventura, guys who played at a probably in 9th or 10th grade. Henry Doherty came up and came in even though they're young, came in experienced. But man, I'm just amazed at how unflappable these guys are. There is a high hockey IQ. There's a chemistry because a lot of these young players have been playing together for a long time, but they just don't seem to panic with the puck, right? Like they are in control emotionally. They are in control, strategically and executionally. It is a really fun team to watch because they're calm. I think we've talked about this in the last couple of weeks. We've said this is I think they have little brother mentality, right? And many of them are little brothers, and even some of the older players on the team. Charlie Ramsey has older siblings. Younger brothers tend to get messed about with by their older siblings, right? And they become unflappable. And there's nothing. I saw this in the Suffering game. This is a bunch of younger brothers who are not going to let the older brothers push them around anymore. It's a very, very fun team to watch because of that calm. And you can see it if you come to the game. And by the way, I will continue to invite everybody to come to these games because they're really, really fun to watch. But if you watch them, you're going to see these 9th and 10th graders skating with the puck on their stick, looking around with their head up, not rushing to get the puck off their stick. They are calm. This is a smart, composed, confident hockey team. And there's almost nothing more fun. Skill is fun to watch for sure. And there's a lot of skill and there's a lot of balance in the scoring. And as we said with Mikey Dillon, they just have one of these great goalies that comes around not that often. But they're fun to watch because they don't make a ton of mistakes, because they're disciplined, they're calm, and they're confident.
I then asked Seigerman one of the most difficult questions of the interview. Do you think that Mamaroneck High School's hockey team has the ability to go to states?
Okay, so I have to preface this by saying I'm a lifelong Mets fan and Jets fan and Rangers fan.
Oh no.
So I don't know what it's like to watch a team that is composed to go very far into the postseason, but I'm always hopeful, right? But when you look at a team and what its chances are, you have to look at a handful of things. I think first of all, you want to look at goaltending. In postseason hockey, a hot goalie can carry you all the way. Mikey Dillon is that guy who can do that. He goes on a hot streak, and all of a sudden you're in Buffalo playing for the state championship. They have balanced scoring, right? So it's not like you can shut down one star player, right? They have several guys who are that caliber, who can score, in bunches, but it's not just one guy and it's not just one line. They're solid defensively. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't take a ton of penalties and put themselves in shorthanded situations. And they also have they play these games close. I know the Suffering game, the game with the final was 4-0. But if anybody watched them play Suffern, and Suffern is the elite hockey program in Westchester County in Section 1, and they're just amazing to watch. When you watch this team play Suffern, the final was 4-0. It was not a 4-0 game. It was a close game throughout. And they have to come away from that game. The Tigers have to come away and say, we can hang with those guys. And if we can hang with Suffern, there isn't anybody in the state that we can't hang with. And even if you look at some of the teams that they played this year that teams have played in the past, and maybe last year's team lost to Bethlehem 4-1, this team tied Bethlehem. And maybe trying to think of the name, Clarence, the team from up in Buffalo, last year's team lost to them, by 5 or 6 goals. This year's team either beat them or tied them. I can't remember that outcome. You can see in their body of work that this team can play with the best teams on this schedule, and they're really taking advantage of or taking the opportunity of all the games that they should win by winning them considerably. But when they play the better teams on their schedule, they're playing them close enough for it to be a ball game, and that's all you want in the playoffs is a chance to contend and be in the game at the end. And I just don't see anybody blowing the doors off this Tigers team. They will be able to advance in the postseason with this kind of confidence, this kind of calm, and this kind of balance of talent.
David's personal analysis of the team shows that this team itself is only getting better and closer to winning sectionals and maybe even states. So you're in the locker room with them, they're all sitting around. What would be your biggest piece of advice for them to improve and just focus on as they go into the latter half of the playoffs and the season in general?
It's a great question, and not being a coach, just an observer of the team and a watcher of hockey, I think the one thing that this team, when they're not playing their best, and even in the other day, and Jacob and I were talking about this during the game, there were moments in the beginning of the first period and there were moments in the beginning of the second period the other day against Rytown Harrison where they were not skating, they were not utilizing their speed, and sometimes they will run into situations where they make a defensive mistake in front of their net and they give the other team a high quality scoring opportunity. That happens for all teams, right? But when the Tigers are not playing great in their defensive end, it tends to be kind of in front of their net. It doesn't happen that often, but that's where they will give up some goals that even Mikey Dillon can't stop, right? But when this team is skating, when they are opening up and they're playing with speed, there aren't a lot of teams that have as much speed as the Tigers do. Now, when you play with speed, you sometimes give up scoring opportunities the other way because an open back and forth game can create opportunities for both teams. But the Tigers have to play that way because they move the puck so well. It is so pretty to watch this team pass, right? And it seems like something that's so simple, but when you watch teams sometimes that struggle to find their teammates, you can feel them become frustrated that even when they make a good play, the pass didn't connect. This team moves the puck so well, they have to play with speed. And in order to play with speed, you have to commit to coming back and playing defense. You can't just stay in the offensive end of the ice. And we've seen it. We saw Henry Doherty the other day back check hard a couple of times, and Bernie Camarda did it once. If you commit to playing a fast, open game, there are not a lot of teams that can skate with the Tigers.
David has noticed a massive change in how the Tigers play on the ice. Not only are the Tigers captivating to watch, there's a clear improvement in the way they play.
I think, being a Mets and Jets and Rangers fan, I tend to pull for the underdog. And, last year it came down to the wire that the Tigers had to win a couple games at the end to make sure they would get into the postseason. And I think it was the North Rockland game here. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was the North Rockland game. I feel like it was 2-1. Actually, I think the Clarkstown game last year was either 2-1 or 1-0. It was the Tigers in the last couple of years, while they didn't have great success on the ice, they, for whatever reason, played Clarkstown really close. And Clarkstown is another one of those teams, probably a half notch below Suffern. And you watch them go and play a team and frustrate a team. The other team comes in, thinks they should kill this this bunch, but you watch a team overachieve. To me, that's so much fun to watch because the expectation isn't there. The hope is there, but the expectation's not there. So I love the games where teams kind of outperform the expectations. That's as a fan, I guess. As someone who loves to watch hockey, you love to watch a good team playing well against a good team. And even though they lost the first game to Suffern this year, you watch that Tigers team, you're like, this is a good team. And forget what the scoreboard says. That was a fun game to watch. And I have to ask you, how much fun is it to watch them?
To
be in the rink and watch them do what they do when they're doing it well.
It's incredible.
It's really fun, right? And I think the one thing that I would encourage MHS students to do is come out and watch, because the only thing that's more fun than watching a good hockey team play well is to do it in a loud building. Going back to Suffern, who's kind of the gold standard for hockey success, they are also the gold standard for fan support. You ask any player on this roster, where's your favorite place to go play if it's not at Homix? Everybody says they love to go play at Suffern because they love to watch what the student section does. They also like to try to quiet that student section, which is not easy to do. It would be so much fun to watch Mamaroneck grow that again and have that fan support Friday nights at 5:30 before the weekend really begins. Everybody should kick off their weekends at Homix and watch this really fun, really talented team play.
Thank you so much to Mr. Seigerman for agreeing to sit down with us to discuss his history as a Mamaroneck Public Radio broadcaster. We recommend that everyone takes his advice and comes down to the Homix Ice Rink to support the team. This was Emily Scobie for Mamaroneck Public Radio.